Hey guys, hope you're all having a great day. So today I'm at my dad's house and we are going to be cleaning up all of the flower beds, primarily in the backyard. There's not too much to do in the front yard, but it's just going to be a good spring cleanup where we're going to cut back the things that need to be cut back. I'm going to be teaching my dad about a few different shrubs and how to cut those back, just things like panicle hydrangeas and some other stuff that we are not going to be pruning as well, and just a good garden cleanup. So I just want to bring you guys along for the process. I'll show you a quick thing of what everything looks like right now, and then I will give you a quick tour at the end of what everything looks like after that, and then we will be done here. So starting off over here in one corner of the yard, there's a couple Brunnera plants that the leaves need to be cleaned up. Most of this other stuff is actually pretty clear. There are some lungworts here. You can see there's like some new growth coming up. There's actually some flower buds, but that just needs to be taken care of. Not too much to do over here. A lot of stuff actually can be left alone. Like those are all winterberry bushes, so those can stay. Butterfly bush I'm not going to touch for right now. Stuff like that, like this is a helianthus that needs to be cut back. We have some ornamental grasses that need to be cut back. I am going to be cutting back the lavender that we grew from last year. I don't want it to get too woody of a base, so we'll just cut it back to a couple of inches. Another ornamental grass. These are a couple hydrangeas that aren't going to be pruned, and I will prune back that Rose of Sharon to keep it dense. A couple other things over here. There's some other lavender over here, ornamental grass. So just a good mix of stuff that needs to be cut back. In other news, my dad also started working on this deck here. So here's the progress so far. This is pretty much the size the deck is going to be, except for some stairs that are going to go down, and then you can see all the railing posts. So we finally are putting a deck on where this sliding glass door is going. Amongst all this wood is also this front bed that we created, and there's a panicle hydrangea that needs to be cut back, as well as a couple other things that need to be cleaned up. And then I think just these containers we'll take care of, as well as a couple sedums that are in this bed here. I'll explain everything in further detail of what we did for each plant at the end, but for now I'll just show you everything that we're doing. Okay, so a couple of hours later, and we got just about everything done that I wanted to take care of today. There's a couple things that we weren't able to do, but it's not that big of a deal. But let me show you everything that we did do. So everything that was over here, there's some hostas, there's a stilby, there's lungwort over here, and then there's some brunnera back over that way. We just cut everything back that we needed to cut back, and then we fertilized everything. Anything that is just kind of growing, doesn't flower a whole lot, we use plant tone, and then if it does flower, then we use like this rose granule. That one isn't an organic fertilizer, but it's something I had left over from a couple of years ago, so I'm just kind of using it up. And then in the future, I'll probably end up getting rose tone, and then that'll be what I'll use for any type of like flowering shrub. So hydrangeas, the rose of Sharon, some other flowering perennials, that's the stuff that we use the rose fertilizer on. Everything else that's more so for foliage, we just use plant tone. And then same thing with evergreens too, we just use plant tone. So these arborvitaes, we cleaned out the leaves underneath, we fertilized all of those. Same thing with this. Now on this side, it's hard to see, but this is a better example. We cut back any lavender that we had so that way they don't develop too woody of a base. So it just was cut back nice and tidy, and then this will grow back nice and thick. Here's the horseman blue atlas cedar that I fertilized with plant tone. We got 2 winterberry hollies. There's the male. We fertilized those. The butterfly bush I didn't touch for today. I'm going to wait until that starts to bud out, which will be a little while before that gets budded out. But arborvitaes were fertilized. There's a helianthus here. This was fertilized. And then for a lot of stuff like this, we just cut back the stubs to just like a couple inches, just so we know where the plants are, and then took care of all of that. This summer wine 9 bark we did not touch. I did fertilize it though, just to get this ready for the season, but I want this to have more of a natural look to it. There is a firelight hydrangea, which we cut back, and I think my dad did a really good job of cutting back panicle hydrangeas. The last couple of years that we've had certain things in that need certain pruning around, I've just taken care of it because I knew how to do it, and my dad really wanted to learn how to do it so that way when I eventually move out, he'll know how to do things himself. So I just kind of taught him certain things like the panicle hydrangeas, how to cut today. Same thing with the rose of Sharon. We have a couple of hydrangea macrophyllus that are not supposed to be pruned because they bloom on old wood, so they develop their buds last season. So 2022 versus now it's 2023. So those you don't want to touch until they start growing, and then you can just cut back any dead. So I just was explaining that to him, and then I had him actually prune everything just so he can get some experience under his belt, and then it'll be self-sustainable for the future. So there's some other grasses that we cut back. This is a type of, I think it's a dwarf fountain grass. That's what this one is. We just cut it a couple of inches above the ground, use plant tone. There is a coneflower here. I can't remember, I think this is called Cheyenne Sky. So that one is already starting to put out some leaves. Same thing with this lavender as before. We just cut these back a little bit. There is I believe this is a Coosa dogwood tree. Another switchgrass. This one's called like Hot Rod, something like that. It was a Monrovia variety. There's 3 black-eyed Susans that are right here that I transplanted from the front. Black Dragon Cryptomeria. There's a miscanthus there. Russian sage. Some type of evergreen. I actually don't remember the name of this one. These are the 2 hydrangea macrophyllus. And look at these tulips that are coming up for that I got from Aldi. This is like the $6 thing. And then there's these 2 types of hellebores. There's a small one there and a larger one. Not hellebores. Heuchera. Here we go. Heuchera that are right here. Those I fertilized with plant tone. So the rose of Sharon, all I did was just prune like 3 inches off the top of this, just so that way it promotes a little bit denser growth. But we only planted it last year, so it's still pretty small, but it'll eventually grow and cover up this whole area. Now these are a bunch of purple coneflowers that we cut back, and then we fertilized all of these. This I'm going to wait and make my own video on because this is a Temple of Bloom Heptacodium, which is already budding out, which is crazy. I didn't realize how early these bud out. So this I'm going to take care of by itself because I'm going to be pruning this into a tree. So stay tuned for that. These blueberry bushes, I did forget to mention this. Blueberry bushes, things that like really acidic soil, we use holly tone on. So there was 3 things I think that we fertilized with holly tone. Blueberry bushes, the berry poppins, winterberry holly, and then the blue hollies that are in the front yard, which I will show you that at the end of this video as well. Green giant arbs were all fertilized with plant tone. And then if I go over here, there's some more lavender that I cut back. So there's a few lavender plants here. This is a small variety of lavender like the other one. And then the honeysuckle, which also is already starting to put out some leaves for the season, I cut that back so that way it doesn't grow out too much, but more so just grows up and then along the fence. We're going to train it to grow along this side over here, along this side over here, more lavender, and then there is a maiden grass right here. I think this is called Morning Glory maiden grass. I believe so. So there's that there, and that's it for the backyard. Over here in the little cactus garden, I just cut back this autumn something sedum. Autumn Joy, that's what it's called. So that was an Autumn Joy sedum. I just cut it back to the ground because it was already starting to grow. So right here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 blue fescue grasses. We got a night that it was -10, and I think that really shocked these plants. So they don't really have a lot of blue on them, which they normally do stay kind of evergreen for us. But I just cut them back to a pretty tight ball, and then these should start to grow back pretty quickly. Daffodils are looking good. Obviously, we didn't do anything with these daffodils, but they're starting to come up. There is a couple of these plants here. I can't think of the name of this, but it starts with a D. I can tell you that at least. And it has like delphinium. That's what these are. So one delphinium here, another one back over there. And then that is a type of bleeding heart, which is also starting to grow. I also had my dad cut back this limelight hydrangea, which he did a really great job taking care of this as well. This is a Helene von Stein lamb's ear. This one I took a lot out of, but it's starting to grow now. And then there is I think that's Bundle of Joy sedum. There is a tiny wine 9-bark surrounded by poppies. We didn't really do anything with the poppies, but I did fertilize the 9-bark. Here's some columbine that started to grow back. So this I fertilized with the rose tone. Same thing with a lot of the other stuff. I use that rose fertilizer just because these are going to be blooming. I used plant tone on this blue spruce. More columbine. And then the last thing here are these 4 types of Carl Forester grasses. These 2 in the middle we actually planted last year. I think we just got them at the end of the summer, so they didn't really grow at all last year, but we noticed that it was a little thin in between the other 3, so we just wanted to add a little bit more. But we have a row of 5 of them here. We just cut them back to a couple of inches, and then we are gonna watch them grow this year. The last thing that we did was just a couple of black-eyed Susans that we did cut back over here and fertilize. If I get in close, it's kind of just like a large clump at this point, but that's about it. I forgot about this denim and lace Russian and sage, but these were just cut back to a few inches and then fertilized with plant tone, which I'm realizing now we probably shouldn't have fertilized those. So if you have your own Russian sage, don't fertilize it because they don't like that. So, oh well. But here are the Castle Spire hollies. These are a type of blue holly. We just went around each plant, fertilized it with holly tone specifically, since they like an acidic fertilizer. And then this is kind of hard to see against the fence. The last thing was with this coral bark Japanese maple, which is right behind me, which you can't even see. But it had like one little sprout on the end of it, which I didn't know that about coral bark Japanese maples, but they do have a tendency to do that. So if you plant your own coral bark Japanese maple, just at the end of the season before it starts growing, you just want to cut back any of those really long, they're almost like suckers that grow out from the ends of each branch. So this is looking better now. And that's just about it. So we got pretty much everything done today that I wanted to take care of. Just getting everything fertilized, cut back that needs to be cut back. There's still a lot of little things we need to do. Like we actually need to still like rake all the grass, and then we'll fertilize the grass for the season. But it was more so the actual flower beds that I wanted to take care of. I also mentioned that once the deck is done, we're going to be putting in a few more beds around there. So I'm going to have to think about some other stuff that we could do in that area. It's going to be more shady though. So there's a couple other things that I'm going to have to look for that can tolerate shade. I'm thinking maybe some like a stilby or possibly a yew. Probably not a yew, but definitely a stilby, maybe a couple hostas, just stuff that can tolerate the shade. Maybe even an oak leaf hydrangea. We'll see. Okay, that's all I have for you in this video. I'm very excited to see how things really start to fill in the next couple of months. I will certainly be providing you guys with some updates on how stuff is doing this season. But besides that, I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you in the next one.